This video is the second video in a series of videos getting back to the basics of survival. In the last video, I defined shelter and identified the first layer of shelter as your clothing. Then we went over shelter site selection and learned where and where not to build our shelters. If you've not seen that video, go back and watch it first, then come back and watch this video. In this video, I'm going to discuss using one of the most effective means of shelter, as well as demonstrate an all-natural lean-to. I'm going to show you how to make a ridgeline and what knots I like to use to make it all work together. As I stated in my previous video, shelter is defined as a place of giving temporary protection from bad weather or danger. Shelter can be all natural or man-made. For natural shelters, rock formations, caves, and hollow trees come to mind, but in South Mississippi, you don't just crawl up inside a hollow log, especially during the spring or summer months. And there's really not a lot of caves, so making a shelter out of natural material would help provide some protection from the elements. Making shelter from natural material really isn't that difficult. All we need is a sapling and a bunch of old fallen limbs and leaves. A survival leaf shelter, whether it's a lean-to or debris hut, an A-frame or an opposing lean-to, helps us stay dry in the rain. It gives us relief from the wind and creates a microenvironment that, coupled with a fire, can keep you warm even on very cold nights. In order to start building our natural shelter, first we're going to find a sapling that will bend over without breaking. What I'm using here is a sweet gum tree. They bend very easily without breaking. Next, we're going to sharpen the top end and push this into the ground as deep as we can. Now we're going to push this in as far as you can into the ground. Now you should have an arch. Next, we will gather fallen branches and sticks to lean up against this arch. The longer the sticks, the more angle you'll have for your shelter, allowing more room for you to lay down and for your gear. Place as many sticks as possible on your arch, trying to cross and close as many gaps as possible. Now you have to collect lots of leaves to cover up all the sticks you've leaned up against the arch. Thatching is defined as a material such as straw, rushes, leaves, or the like that are used to cover roofs. All of these leaves and pine straw will act as a thatching that help block the wind and rain, and in hot environments provide shade from the sun. Now this shelter will give you some protection from the wind for sure, and some protection from the rain. But the thicker you have the leaves and the pine needles and all that piled up on the backside of this, the more rain protection you will get. Now all you have to do is collect you some more leaves for your bedding, put it down, and you have your nice little comfortable bed. If you wanted to turn this into an A-frame style shelter, just repeat the steps on the opposite side. An A-frame or opposing lean-to offers more protection and warmth and is better for colder environments. Let's discuss one of the most convenient items to use for your shelters, the tarp. Tarps can be used for so many things, from shelter to making a hammock to collecting and storing your drinking water. I use this lightweight packable tarp practically every time I venture into the woods. Tarps these days are very lightweight, highly waterproof, and extremely versatile. Tarps were first used in sailing. Canvas sheets were coated with tar to cover cargo on overseas voyages and used to protect cargo from seawater and the elements. In the 1700s, tents began to be used with the tarp material and were used to house soldiers and for traveling across the country. Advancements were made with oilcloth, making the tarp extremely lightweight and waterproof. Presently, lightweight, waterproof tarps can be found from a few $100s all the way down to a few dollars at your local department store. The price is really dependent on the material. Tarps come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, but the one I find myself using most often is the DD 3x3. Now, the 3x3 is 3 meters by 3 meters, which roughly equates to 9 feet by 9 feet, or for those that want to be exact, is 9.84 feet by 9.84 feet. What I love about this tarp system is that it has 19 attachment points for guy lines and stake points or tie-outs. In order to use a tarp as a shelter, you're going to need some sort of cordage. Cordage is just a fancy word for rope. Most bushcrafters or survivalists use paracord or tarred and twisted bank line. I personally use the number 36 bank line because it's very strong with a breaking strength of 320 pounds. And you get more bang for your buck, or you get your money's worth. It can be used for practically anything from lashing, fishing, shelter building, bow drill. In order to make a shelter with a tarp, you need to know a few knots so we can make our ridge line. A ridge line is the highest point of your shelter. Think of a house. The top of your roof is called the ridge. The ridge is where all the other rafters tie into to create your roof. We will use this ridge line for 4 out of the 5 shelters I'm going to demonstrate. Before we begin making our ridge line, we're going to need a few sticks roughly 3 inches long to make what's called a toggle. A toggle is basically used as an attachment point. I've made these out of some sticks I found on the ground and just rounded the ends and cut them roughly 3 inches. As you can see, they're roughly the diameter of my little finger. Now going back to the ridge line, I use the overhand loop knot on one end of my cordage. An overhand loop knot is simply an overhand knot tied in a bight. It is among the simplest of loops. Simply fold your line over on one side like this and then make an overhand knot. This is called an overhand loop knot. Some people will say use a bowline knot, but it doesn't matter. Just use whatever you are more comfortable with, and each one of them will get it done. All right, so now what you want to do is you want to take your loop end and you want to run it around the tree. This is called the running end, the standing end, the working end, and you want to take and stick this through this loop just like this and insert your toggle just like that. Now you're able to cinch this down on that tree and it is not going to go anywhere, just like that. So this end is secure. Now we're going to run this end all the way to the next tree. Now this end of your ridge line is secured to the tree. It's not going to go anywhere until you remove that toggle. Now run your bank line all the way to the other tree and let's make a trucker's hitch. This knot, the trucker hitch, will allow you to tighten your ridge line. It is also used to secure cargo to the roof racks of your vehicles and cargo trailers. It's very handy when you need to pull tension on your string or your rope. First, you want to loop your string around your tree, just like this. Then you want to come out about 12 to 16 inches, and then you're going to loop it around your hand like so. Then you're going to reach back through and grab that string and pull up just like that. What you've created is a loop. Now we're going to take the end of your string and run it through this loop. And then that will allow us to put tension on this ridge line and tighten it up. Now this is going to make this string, the ridge line, tighter. Now all you have to do is just come over here and you can wrap this around the whole string. 1, 2. Now on your next turnaround, you just feed this back through this loop. And there you go. Tighten it off just like that. Now you left a little loop here with a little tag. You just pull this and your whole string can come undone. So let's tighten that back up. Now I like to set my ridge line about 5 feet high. For me, that's about shoulder height. That's it. We've successfully made a ridge line. This ridge line can be used for numerous shelter configurations. Now we need to cut 2 short pieces of bank line and we're going to make loops out of them. And those loops are going to become our attachment points for our tarp. Simply take your piece of string and make an overhand loop knot. And now you have a loop. On the ridge line, hold your loop up against the back side like this. Loop it around 2 times. 1, 2. Then pull it tight. And it should make what is called a prusik knot. The prusik knot allows you to adjust where you want the knot to be. But once you put tension on the knot, it locks into place and will not move. Let's put another one on. I already put both of these on here. Now let's get ready to start making our shelter. You need tent stakes also, and depending on the country, you call them pegs or stakes. You can make them out of sticks at your campsite, or depending on your situation, you could carry some metal store-bought ones. For this video, I'm using the ones that are metal store-bought. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to make 5 different shelters with your tarp, which are relatively easy to make and provide adequate protection from the elements. The first 4 require the ridgeline, which we have just made. The last one does not. The first shelter we're going to make is the most simplistic and easiest one to make, the lean-to. It provides decent shelter from the rain and provides shade. You will set this shelter up depending on which way the wind is blowing to block the wind. Start by attaching one corner of your ridgeline by inserting the prusik loop through the tie-out point and insert your toggle. Then do the same on the other side. Now pull your prusik loop until it is tight. Go to the back end of your shelter and pull the corner tight and stake it down. Do this again on the other side or the other corner, and now you have created a lean-to shelter. The next shelter is called an A-frame shelter. You want to lay the tarp lengthways across the ridge line directly in the center of the tarp. Insert the prusik loop and the toggles just like you did before on both sides, pulling very tight. Now stake down the 4 corners of the tarp to the ground and you have a shelter that is more protected from the wind than a simple lean-to, and it's more protected from the rain or snow. The next shelter is very similar to the A-frame, but it's called the diamond fly. The A-frame and the diamond fly are both used to cover hammocks, but work just as well on the ground. First, lay the tarp corner to corner over your ridgeline. Use the prusik loop and the toggle just like the 2 shelters before and make it tight. Next, take the 2 wings and stake them down to the ground. This will make a diamond shape and allows for a little more coverage than the A-frame. The Adirondack Shelter is traditionally a 3-sided log structure, but you can manipulate a tarp to form this style shelter, which will offer you protection from the elements from 3 sides, and it's great for winter camping in front of a fire. The first step is to lay one corner of your tarp over the ridge line. Now attach a toggle to your tarp by inserting the prusik loop through the top tie-out point. Next, go around to the back of the tarp and stake out the tie-out points that are directly opposite of the toggles. Now tuck the far corner of the tarp in, and this will give you sort of a small ground sheet. Then stake down the 2 front corner tie-out points, which will make the walls for your shelter. Flip the top over, and then attach a string to the guy line in the middle of the top of the tarp. Tie this to a tree, and this will add dimension and give you room inside your shelter. Now this type of shelter reflects heat towards your body. If you have a fire in front of you, it is perfect for winter camping in colder environments. Now we're going to make a plow point shelter. The plow point is extremely easy to make and it can be set up very quickly. This shelter only requires 1 piece of cordage to set it up. I've even set the shelter up without any cordage at all. You do not need a ridge line for this shelter. You will also need a minimum of 3 tent stakes to secure the tarp to the ground. In the diamond fashion, take one corner of your tarp and secure it to a tree over your head. I like to go about 7 feet high or so. Using your stakes, pull the furthest end out as tight as you can get it. Now come to the front of either side and pull it tight and stake it down and repeat with the last corner. What you have created is an easy, fast, and very effective shelter that resembles an old plow or a diamond. Now that we know what shelter is, how to select our site, and how to make our shelter in various different configurations and even with natural materials, it's time to move on to the next item in this basic survival video series. In my next video, we're going to learn about fire. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. God bless you.